All right, well, hello everyone. My name is Taylor Fry, and I serve as Student Alumni Board President.
And I am Krista McKittrick, and I am the Vice President of Campus Programming for SAB.
On behalf of Student Alumni Board, we'd like to officially welcome you to the 4th Annual Distinguished Young Alumni Keynotes. We are very excited for this afternoon and think you're in for a real treat. But before we begin today's presentation, there are a few people and organizations that we would like to thank. First and foremost, we want to thank the Alumni Association and its Board of Directors for their continued support of the Distinguished Young Alumni programs and of Student Alumni Board's programming. We specifically want to recognize the Alumni Association's CEO and President, Amy Button-Rins. We would also like to thank President Kirk Scholes and Dr. Pat Bosco, Vice President of Student Life, for their ongoing support and promotion of the Distinguished Young Alumni programs. Finally, we would like to extend a warm welcome to the family that is here with us today.
At this time, I have the honor of welcoming our second Distinguished Young Alumni Award recipient to the stage. A native of Garden City, Kansas, he is currently the Design Director of Hafer Wysocki Architecture in Dallas, Texas. He graduated from K-State in 2008 with a master's degree in architecture. While at K-State, he was an active member of Mortarboard Senior Honor Society, National Organization of Minority Architecture Students, Phi Kappa Phi Honor Society, and president of Sigma Lambda Beta Fraternity. He was also a Rhodes Scholar National Finalist, Alumni Association Multicultural Award recipient, and the Sigma Tau Delta Architecture Student of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Clemente Jaquez.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. It's such a privilege and an honor, really, to receive this recognition. And I don't know if you guys heard Courtney's presentation, so inspiring. It was super amazing. And so thank you to the Student Alumni Board, the Alumni Association. You guys put so much effort into this endeavor. It's just amazing. So thank you for that. I want to thank my advisors, my mentors, who have guided me in so many ways up to this point, including Anita Cortez, who actually nominated me for this award. So thank you for that. Today, you will hear me talk in depth about my work, my aspirations, my mission. But none of that could be possible if it wasn't for my personal hero, my mom, Silvia. Gracias. Thank you so much. You know, our generation is unique. And I really believe that. I'm sure many people say that, but I really do believe that. There is a sense of relevance in what we do. I think that there is also a sense of self-consciousness, a social consciousness to want to contribute to the greater good, right? To have some kind of relevance in what we do, that in the end, it won't be so much about accomplishing a job, but rather fulfilling a mission. So today, what I want to do with you is share a little bit of my mission, and that mission being that I want to use architecture as a catalyst for culture and social change. That's not mine. Wait, going backwards. Sorry about that. There it is. So it's great to be back at K-State, you know, walking around campus. And actually, Courtney and I got a chance to go to the K-State basketball game the other day. We were so close. It seems that we're always that close, right? But it was very exciting. It was very exciting to see so much enthusiasm, so much energy, and re-energizes me in so many ways. And seeing the studios, the students, reminds me of being here at K-State. And I remember as a student, giving presentations, I would always look around the room for Anita Cortez, and she would either give me a thumbs up or she would do this, put her hand to her ear, and she would say, "Speak up." So I hope you can hear me today. And what I want to do is first open up by reflecting on a few words, some of them that you see in front of you. You know, every now and then along your career, you're going to encounter a set of values that are going to drive you to succeed and are going to guide you at a fundamental level. First and most of all, passion. I believe that we must pursue our interests with relentless passion to believe in what we do. That in fact, we can actually take our intuition and then build that into every part of our work, part of our job. Compassion, the sense and idea that even though we have this energy, this ambition to do well in the world for ourselves, that we must treat others with respect, that we must treat others with tremendous sense of compassion. And I think that in the end, our talent, our vision, it represents our work, but the way we treat people defines us as leaders. Idealization. You can't be afraid to talk about your ideas. You got to believe in what you do. And very often people will tell you, don't do that. That's not the way things are done. I heard it many times, especially as a designer. But what I would challenge you to do is to believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to take risks. Patience. I'm sure you all can relate to this. The world moves around so quickly. Our quick access to media, work, knowledge, it's overwhelming sometimes. And we want to get everything done in 1 year, a few months, even a few weeks. And so sometimes we need to just slow down. Slow down so we can reassess our vision, our goals, and who we are. And ultimately, I like to talk about humility and work in unison, because I think it drives everything that we do. I think in the end, our accomplishments will be measured by the level of integrity that we put into our work and our level of effort. And so what I also want to tell you is that in school, very often I get this question, how can I be successful? How can I be a great designer? And I have this belief that there is no amount of talent that cannot be overcome by hard work. Don't be afraid to work hard. And so today I have one question for you. How much do you want to sacrifice for that hard work, for that success that you want to achieve? And so today, another thing that I want to share with you is this idea that as architects, we are stewards of our communities. That in fact, as architects, and at least for those young designers wishing to make a presence in the world, that to be an architect is no less than committing to social activism and cultural relevance. Now, again, my name is Clemente Jaquez. I am a registered architect in the state of Texas. I am privileged to lead our design studio for Hafer Wysocki in Dallas. And within that context, my role is to implement the ideation of every design detail in most buildings that we create. That is a very privileged position, something that I take as part of my obligation and my job. So everybody grows up having this idea or a dream of who they want to become, right? I was heavily influenced by helping my grandfather plow the lands of his ranch in the mountains of Mexico. I was influenced by my father, who laid brick for a lot of house developments in Chihuahua, Mexico. And I think that those influences continue to influence me today. In my neighborhood where I grew up, everybody had this sense of belonging. The houses around us were all brick, they were all concrete, and there was a sense of permanence. So that the houses were actually almost a generation apart, that the houses were passed on from family to family, and they represented not just a place where people lived, but rather their culture, their family, and their lineage. And so transitioning to the United States, I had to kind of deal with that idea, how do people build in this place? In my neighborhood, you can find all trades. You can find a mason, a welder, and that's in my neighborhood. It was just one street, but you could find them all the trades. And that was amazing because everybody felt empowered to create. And so coming to K-State, these experiences became part of my mission, the privilege of translating the values, the desires, and the aspirations of society, right? That through my hands, I could create and I could mold the built environment around us. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. I could do that. I'm in 100%. I want to be an architect. And so that has driven much of my mission even up to this day. And so as I grew up in K-State and advanced my career, and now as a design leader for Hafer Wysocki in Dallas, I cannot help but have a deep sense of obligation, right? Again, that what we do matters and that we must do it with purpose. First, I want to share with you a project that was very meaningful for me. In 2006, when Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans, I was privileged with the opportunity to visit and help with the cleanup efforts. This was perhaps one of the first learning opportunities that I had to understand that as a professional, we can actually have an impact on our built environment. This was perhaps the first time as well that I would venture outside of Kansas on my own. So that was very exciting. For the first time, I saw a community completely destroyed by a natural disaster. Also, the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans is perhaps one of the most impoverished areas in the state. And so people wanted to move back. They wanted to reclaim their house, their homes. There was a lot of culture. There was a lot of pride in those spaces. And so after some work, after a little bit of effort, through the talent of K-State students, through the talent of the community, we were able to build the House of Dancing Feathers. This was actually a cultural museum to represent a symbol of pride, a symbol of the community, that in fact New Orleans is not just a place for houses, it is a home to a lot of people. When Greensburg was abruptly destroyed, if you guys remember some of that, it was very catastrophic. On the left side, you see an image, green, healthy community. On the bottom, a community completely destroyed. So once again, we felt it an obligation to be part of the healing and recovery process, that through internal discussions in our studio, we can actually do something about this. And so through small installations that could be used from day one, we sought to provide some kind of service. In 2007, I had the opportunity to participate in the first ever K-State Solar Decathlon competition in Washington, D.C. That was something. So we got a chance to actually build a house, a solar house, and transport it to Washington, D.C. Now, that was a task. And so in doing so, the Solar Decathlon competition is essentially a competition to build a house that is judged on its ability to use solar, wind, and passive means of energy. And so we actually even got a chance to meet Representative Nancy Voida in the DC Capitol. That was very exciting. And here's a picture of the final product. And so my journey and travels and exposure to K-State and different projects has shaped who I have become as a professional. Actually, in thinking about K-State, one of those things that was a fundamental building block of who I was to become as a design thinker, as a design professional, was actually the Developing Scholars Program, which was a program founded directly on research. And so through the Developing Scholars Program, besides the research, that's where I met my wife. So can't be that bad, right? So research became the basis of all my studies. A simple formula, really, and I'm sure most of you haven't exposed to it. Hypothesize an idea, gather information and knowledge, validate your results against measurable metrics, and then make a conclusion. My conclusion has been the buildings that you will see in front of you. And so going beyond the building is important. Telling the story of a place helps us connect with the people, and it makes buildings a lot more meaningful, right? And so everybody yearns for that personal connection that says, you know what, this needs to feel a little more than work. It needs to feel more like a mission, like I contribute to something meaningful. And so in being able to inspire others, I look to Nelson Mandela, who once said, if you speak to a person in his second language, you are speaking to his brain. If you speak to a person in his first mother language, you are speaking to his heart. And I don't think he was talking just about idioms. It's not just a matter of Spanish, English, or what have you. I think that as professionals, we need to tie our aspirations to the values and the needs of our clients. Often I discuss ideas with my clients and I ask them, what is your idea? And they often state, well, I want a beautiful building. I want a dynamic building. I want a functional, efficient building. And so my job is then to translate these ideas into tangible aspects, basically translate those desires and visions onto the built environment. Now, I have been fortunate to compete on projects across the world. And every project that I have designed is different. And it's different because at least I like to think that I listen to that part, to that story that is unique to that client and to that place. And so today I want to share with you 3 projects that I have done, one in China, one in South America, and one in the United States. the Shenzhen Chinmin Hospital. That one was unique. That was actually my first project abroad. And the Shenzhen Chinmin Hospital exemplifies the idea of integrating the natural environment with the built environment. This idea that we try to create a seamless integration between what is around us and then those functional needs that we have as society. As you know, a few years ago, when I traveled to China, went to Shanghai, Beijing, and Tianjin, and there you saw a growth of urban development. And it just happened so fast-paced. So I wonder, most of the Chinese individuals, people, wanted to hang on to what little landscape, the natural element that connects us, really with what's around us. And so this hospital, in so many ways, try to capture that idea of still keeping nature as an inherent part of the healing and recovery process of patients, but also the community. I'll go back to that one. I like that image. Cruz Blanca Hospital. This project exemplifies the idea between craft and culture. When I traveled to Santiago, Chile, I was intrigued by the craft of the architecture and the great interest of creating meaningful buildings. I was heavily inspired by the monumental presence of the Andes and the amazing craft and celebration of the local culture. In this design, I'm going to get my pointer. I want you to see something. In this design, the faceted aspects of the base itself represents the natural terrain of the mountains. And in between, an element, very pristine, this idea of the correlation between man-made, the natural, and also what represents our modern society. This idea was then to take this elevator so that as you went up, you actually had this clear view of the Andes, an uninterrupted view of everything that was around you. So then you entered to this kind of crevice, you could say, these boulders. And then upon entering the building itself, you had an opportunity to reflect upon the context of your surrounding. While in school, and I like to give a lot of credit to the College of Architecture, I think that we must understand that we're here to be trained to do something. And I think we must use those fundamental building blocks in order to do well in the world. And so I want to share with you just almost like the behind the curtains, kind of work. This idea that everything that we do is driven by fundamental ideas that then get translated as a result. And so here, a small architectural lesson. As architecture students, since day one, they teach us that you must always break down your building into simple components or principles of design, being scale, proportion, and rhythm. This idea that scale relates to our desire to not be overwhelmed by huge buildings, that we must have this experience that relates to us as humans. Proportion. Proportion tries to break things into a composition of elements that focuses your vision, that focuses really some aspects of the building, whether that's the entry, a garden, and ultimately language. This is the rhythm of the building, so that when you come to a building and when you engage with the building, how a building looks like, how it feels, the openness, the light, and sometimes even the smell. It becomes a memorable idea in our mind, and that's how we remember buildings. And ultimately, I want to share with you the University Hospital in Dallas, Texas. This was actually the closest one to home, so I was very excited to work on this one. The University Hospital, it exemplifies an ideal between highly functional spaces with the idea of creating a unique patient experience. I started working on this project actually 2 years out of school. And through this project, I saw myself growing and maturing as a designer. The new UT Southwestern Hospital is one-of-a-kind academic teaching hospitals in the United States. A balance of function and experience was the key to its success. The goal was to create an environment of positive distractions and create a highly efficient design on the operational side. Sometimes as patients go into places, they're already at their most vulnerable, perhaps very stressful situations. And the one thing that you can do is at least create an environment that reduces that stress level. And so through gardens, and through open spaces that receive natural daylight. And this feeling of openness and freedom where you can roam around is very important, especially for families who may be waiting for those patients that may be having surgery. Here's a building almost completed. So you can see from the building itself that it's kind of in a W-shaped formation. And I mentioned that we must be very thoughtful about the decisions that we make in our designs in our buildings. So the W shape allows us to mitigate sun exposure on the west or the east facades. Also, it allows us to break the building into smaller, functional, highly specialized units. One of the units is actually going to be an infectious outbreak unit, similar to the Ebola outbreak that happened in Dallas. So that could be very exciting, one of a kind. So the hospital officially opened just over 1 year ago and already is full to capacity. That I have no doubts they will expand to about 1/3 of its size, and when it does, I hope to be there to work on it. Personally, the UT Southwestern Hospital, it gave me, and it still continues to give me, a great sense of pride. The idea that what we do matters, and it reinforces for me the power of thoughtful and meaningful and deliberate decisions. It is a privilege for me to have exerted so much influence on a global scale, to have pushed major economies to think differently about healthcare delivery, and most of all, to give back to the people and the communities of these buildings. I do believe that we have a generation of socially minded individuals who not only care about what they do, but they will give back. They will give back to the places and the spaces where they live. In my time at K-State, one idea became heavily ingrained, and that was the idea of social responsibility. In the United States, as you know, we have this desire to want to change the world. We come out and we want to make a difference. And in that difference, we forget that sometimes, even within our own communities, there is room for growth. There is room for us to make an impact. And so, as an activist architect, I once again look to architecture for an answer. The Little Free Libraries project is part of a bigger effort to promote a culture of reading and to influence high school dropout rates. We know for a fact that access to education and learning tools improves a student's success and their desire to pursue a higher education. This little library beyond architecture was a true privilege for me and my fellow designers, because most times, we embark on work and we want to see the fruits or even the gratification of what we do come to life right away. And as an architect, it takes time for buildings to take place. But small projects like this that engage us with our communities gives us that feeling of relevance, that feeling that, what we do does in fact matter. And so, to me, most of all, this project indicates and it proves that architecture in action can impact people in very extraordinary ways. So this project actually is very simple, and I love how, when we first put it in place, the children were so excited, and I wasn't sure how they were going to take it, but they started to call it the cool wavy stair. That's what they said it was. And I was like, sure, let's go with that. So that's what it became. And it was very exciting because, this was at a local YMCA in South Dallas. And then again, you don't have to go very far to make an impact, to make a difference. I think that sometimes we almost look for the extreme side of things, but understand that in the United States, there's still lack of access to education, social equity, and so we can still do things that matter here at home. So, as designs of my work appear behind me, I want to share with you a few closing thoughts that had helped me advance my career and that I hope will shed a little bit of light into yours. Craft your habits deliberately. In the conceptual process of making, understand that not the habits are the main driver, perhaps even more so than inspiration and motivation. Create a brand for yourself that represents not only your values, but allows you to express and articulate what you're all about. Align yourself with the right people, not with the right business. I think when we start graduation, when we enter the real world, people look for those companies, but look for the right people. Those are the people that are going to take you places. Understand that we all have this innate seed of knowledge. Plant that seed carefully. You know what? When you graduate, you may end up at a place that it may not be the highest paying job. It may not even be the coolest, but it will be the place that's going to form you as a designer, as a leader, somebody that will do something different in the world. Be confident and assertive in your pursuits. Know that failure go hand in hand. Inevitably, if failure it is tied to innovation, well, you might as well give it a try. Look for unscripted, genuine experiences. I think that often we let amazing moments pass by us simply because of this desire to have almost like a record, a memory, and for it to become a digital spectacle of social media. You're never wrong to do the right thing. And so, in closing, I believe that design matters. I believe that design creates value, not simply subject to beauty. That design should have a purpose. That design should inspire us to do well in society. I remind myself that we are servant leaders, and our work should always aim to improve the human condition. And so, in conclusion, I want to share a quote from one of our friends. You may know him, who said, "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about the prosperity and progress of our communities. Our aspirations must be broad enough to include the goals and the achievements of others for their sake and for our own." Thank you. I will take any questions. The question was whether I always wanted to be an architect. No, not always. I knew that I always wanted to create. You know, from being very young, I saw my dad creating. I saw my grandfather creating. Everybody around me was creating. So it wasn't until I came to the United States and understood that there was such a word that you can use to do that, architecture, and I decided to go for it. Yes.
Yeah, so being back on campus, what has been like your most present thought? What has been like reminding you about your time at K-State? What have you been thinking about now that you're back here, you know, on our campus again?
Man, that's easy. It's the energy. You know, it's that personal ambition. You know, sometimes you go out there into the working world and you just get jaded. You know, you advance, don't look at me funny, it's true. You know, you go into the working world and you have to adhere to standards, to protocols, and ultimately at some point you become comfortable, and in that comfort, you become complacent. So coming here, all of a sudden, students turn things on their head and they think about, you know, what is it that we haven't done? So it's refreshing. I think I continue to face a lot of those challenges. I believe that it's not necessarily a challenge, but a matter of accepting that being different is not bad. Being different is good. And I think that when I first came to the United States, 11 years old, assimilating to a culture, a language that was different than my own was hard. And very often I fought to assimilate. But it was a moment when I accepted who I was, the beauty of my culture, the beauty of my heritage, that then I could use that to understand that in architecture, in our fields, they would benefit from having different people that think differently. Because when you have people who think the same, who look the same, you can aspire to receive results then that are not the same.
So you talked a lot about character and integrity. Has there ever been an instance, especially in your career, where either your integrity or your values have been challenged, and how did you really address that?
Yeah, it almost happens on a daily basis almost. And the question was, I talk a lot about integrity. I talk a lot about values. Basically, have I been challenged in those aspects in my work? And my answer is that I face that very often, almost on a daily basis. And that really has to do not more on a personal level, but rather my mission. And my mission is to create and give articulate thoughts, thoughtful decisions, and solutions for my clients, things that relate to who they want to be, who they aspire to be. And when you surround yourself with people, you understand that not everybody feels the same way that you do. Sometimes the standard is not met. And very often I question everything that we do, from whatever, as little as it may be. And it comes a moment when when somebody does something, when we do some work, and they're ready to send it out, they're ready to present it to clients, and you have to stand tall, you have to stand your ground and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do anything more than excellence for our clients and for the environment even. So I think that plays into that idea. I think being Hispanic is a beautiful thing. I love it. Being Latino, being proud of who you are is an important thing. And having traveled the world, I think you realize that makes you very unique, and people want to learn about you. People travel to Italy, Spain, China, because they want to see culture at its most natural. And I think that here we're counterintuitive to that. We say we're melding pot. I can't even say it. But we're not all the same. It's okay to be different. We can still coexist. But I think the values and the mission of our goals have to be the same, right? And I think that's what unites us in our efforts.
Clemente, what are some of your most differentiating young designers that work for you with you?
I'm sorry.
The management of younger designers who work with you and for you, what are some of your key thoughts on how to do that well?
So I would say that in working with younger designers, I say our generation is great, right? I said that we are awesome. We have just raw talent, and I really believe it. I really do. People always, sometimes I heard that millennials feel entitled. I heard that a few times, and maybe true, but I say that it's just raw talent waiting to escape. I think that you have to be able to manage that talent, because I say that, if you want to participate, great, but be ready to contribute. If you want an opportunity, awesome, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to hold you accountable for that opportunity. So you kind of set them for success, but also allow them to see that there's responsibility in everything that we do. Yeah, I do see things a lot differently. and I only mean in the context of the work that we do. I think that, again, we have amazing talent. And when we go into the profession, we have these expectations that we are going to get a chance to design, that we're going to get a chance to do amazing things, that we're going to shake up the world with every day and with every line of our pencil. But I will say that there is no job too small for you. I would say that, you don't have to be the most talented to be the most valuable.
Yes, tell us about your backyard communities. How do you go back to Garden City?
Wow, that is tough. No, but without actually having a physical tie to Garden City, what I feel very proud sometimes whenever I get students from that area reaching back to me, and my effort has been to hopefully guide them, to mentor them, to tutor them. I would say that has been my greatest contribution, within the students that are coming from that area. Yes.
Hello, Clemente.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You were involved in so many different aspects on campus as a student leader. What are some of the
skills that you drew from those experiences that have benefited you most as a professional?
So I was involved in a lot of activities at K-State, probably too many. And how has that helped me as a professional? I do think that it's really the exposure, because in architecture, in order for you to be successful, I have this belief that the tenet of great design is knowing your subject. And my subject is typically you guys, right? Whenever you become professionals, if you're not an architect, you will become our clients. So the more I understand how you work, the more I understand about you. And again, form that personal connection to what's important to you, I can be more successful. So from the very beginning, being at K-State, I wanted to understand beyond architecture. I wanted to understand other students, other professions. I wanted to understand how that has an influence on my work. And that's something that I continue doing today. Oh, right there.
My question is, what keeps you motivated and inspired in your profession, in what you do?
I would say a sense of relevance, right? The things that I've done, the hospitals, the clinics, the designs, they actually have value. They shake up communities, and they mean something. And for me to, be privileged to be part of that process, to design and create these things, it's amazing. It's an amazing privilege. So that keeps me motivated to understand that I'm not doing it for myself. I believe that I want to have an impact. And so when I drive around Dallas, and now, it's going to be 2 projects in Dallas that I have done, one, the UT Southwestern Hospital, you look at it, and you're like, wow, I designed that. And so if you're going to leave a mark in the world, I think that we can do our best.
We have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay.
If anyone has any more.
The communication projects that you presented, were all created, or was it just Dallas?
No, actually, I'm glad you asked that, because this will actually give you another insight into how the world works. Dallas was implemented, it's done about 1 year ago. In China, there's a very heavy political environment. And so we actually won the project that I showed you. It was about to begin, and the mayor decided to give it to one of his buddies, so we didn't get it. So that was interesting. In Santiago, Chile, as a matter of economy, we started the project, and you saw in the hospital that there is no parking. The parking is all below ground. Chileans are really good at mining. And so they dug the hole. The hole was about 200 feet below, and that's as far as it went. The company was sold to a Spanish entity, and it got stopped. And then finally, the Dallas building, well, it came through. And again, I think that it will expand probably 1/3 its size, and that will be exciting.
As a person that has seen a lot of success, were there moments in your life where maybe you faced discouragement and this stuff? Like, how did you overcome those discouraging moments?
I will recount a story from the very beginning of my career at K-State. It was my first semester, my first studio ever, my first exposure to architecture. And, we worked so hard. I'm sure you guys know that. And we were in studio about 2, 3 in the morning. Everybody, all of us, just wanted to do the right job, wanted to figure out how to get things done. And I came to a roadblock where I could just not get something right. I couldn't draw it. And I was frustrated. I called some people. I might have shed a tear. I was ready to give up. But then I went back into the classroom, and I knew there was this one individual who knew how to get those things done. So I asked him for help. I asked him to show me how to get this one particular aspect of my assignment done. He gave me an example. I went from there. It was stellar. I got an A on that project. And ever since then, I never looked back. So I would say, look to your left, look to your right, learn from your peers.
Do you want to give one more round of applause?
Thank you.
So this concludes our program for this afternoon, and we would just one more time like to thank Courtney and Clemente for taking time out of their crazy busy schedules to come back and visit campus and give us those awesome keynote presentations that we learned a ton from. You guys have done so much in your careers, and it's such an honor to hear from you as you've made exceptional strides, in your young professional careers. So thank you so much.
All right, like Taylor said, thank you all for coming, and just enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.